we're a management consulting firm, and we start businesses, we help them get funded, we do turnarounds for businesses that are in trouble, we improve businesses that are trying to grow or expand in some way, shape, or form via different kinds of strategy, and we sell businesses. But all of that, the main core of what we do is based on research. We're not a coach, we don't guess, we don't give you advice. We do the research, and the research tells you what to do. It's really simple, it's not complicated, it just takes a boatload of hours, and you do it that way instead of experimenting. So when it comes to bank financing or a lot of the regular kind of debt financing that's involved, you really need credit and collateral at the end of the day. And you stop me if I'm wrong. So if you get a bank, any bank, and some banks will relax their underwriting standards a teensy bit, and some are really conservative, and some will go back and forth depending on what their portfolio looks like or what the times are as far as the economy and everything. But if you don't have a house to put up, or you don't have something of collateral that you can put up, or somebody else that has collateral that can co-sign a loan or something like that, you cannot, like on TV, do a business plan and walk into the bank and hand them the business plan and go, isn't that idea the coolest thing you've ever seen on the planet? I only need 100,000. And the guy goes, I love it, and writes you a check.
Is that gonna happen?
No. Yeah. So the latest movie that I saw was Queen Latifah left her barber shop and went to open up her own barber shop, and she brought a business plan into the woman, and then the woman turned her down, and then she bumped into her in a bathroom and fixed her hair because she had bad hair, and she got the loan. And it's like stuff like that that makes people think they can do a business plan and walk into the bank and get a loan. And let's not even talk about the difference between a business plan and a feasibility study, which, you know, a business plan is your little 15 pages that you do because you got a CD from Staples and you answered the questions really quick, versus like researching all that stuff and ending up with 40 pages worth of something that looks like you really assessed the business, not just 15 pages saying it's awesome. It's awesome. We don't have any competitors. It's awesome.
And I do want to say, if you don't have a business plan yet and you haven't started one and you kind of want to get an idea of where do I start, you can go to SBA. I think it's .gov or .org. I did write it down. Or you can just Google it. Or score.org, I mean. Go to score.org. They have business plan templates for you. And that's what I use. I worked with SCORE really closely to start my business, mostly because I just wanted to make sure that they didn't think I was crazy. You know, they're like my sounding board. So, but you can get templates, you can print it off, and then you can really just start from there. They also have all your financial projection Excel worksheets on there as well, so that's really cool because it makes it a lot easier when you have some place to start. And then you can, you know, get with a mentor as well, someone that has experience in business.
There's also a business template on my website that's a little easier to find, and I believe the SCORE financial projection is on my website as well. On the business resources, you can just pop on and grab it. EAP, SCORE.
So when I first started so I had this idea. I always wanted to have my own business. My father is a business owner. All my uncles were business owners, so it was like in my blood. It was like I could be a doctor, an accountant, could be a manager, hairstylist, but there was like entrepreneur was like always an option for me. And I always wanted it since I was young. So I worked for my father for about 6 years out of college. I went to school for fashion merchandising and retailing. Not that that really, you know, gave me a lot of what I needed to know to own my own business. But it was enough to make me know that that's what I definitely wanted to do. And I decided one day that I was going to do this. I was unhappy working for my father. Family businesses can be rough, if anyone's ever been in one. And I knew I believed that I could do it better than other people. I could own a great store. I had great ideas. So you always have to really know that you have the best product or you have the best service, because you have to really believe in yourself first. And I actually worked with SCORE, so I printed out my business plan, and I did all that, and I just researched. And this was when, in 2007, I started the spring of 2007, and by January 2008, I knew I was going to be getting a small business loan with Rhinebeck Savings Bank, and I just it was my clear focus that this was what I was going to do, and I just researched everything from top to bottom. I worked with SCORE to create my business plan, and they really helped in the financial end with like profit and loss and all that type of stuff, because that was kind of my weakness. I spend that money really well. I just needed to learn how to use it wisely, I should say. So I did my business plan and I presented it. Like I said, it was in a binder. I had done research on, my competitors. Most important, make sure you research all your competitors, especially with what you plan on doing, because there's a pretty good chance, unless it's a new product that's out there, someone's already done it. So there's going to be different qualities of how they did it, but someone's already done it, so you can kind of really research that. I did my business plan and I presented it to the bank early spring, and it didn't actually go through till April, and I had already actually placed orders for clothes and everything and secured my space. I was just moving along. But I did have a co-signer. My mom did co-sign. I was 27 years old. I did have a house with my sister, and she was like, I'm not doing that with you, girl. So I was like, Mom. So I did have somebody, but I also had cash. I actually, not only did I work for my father, but I waitressed as well for about 2 years before I did it, saving up everything. I cut Starbucks out of my weekly allowance. I really just I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So I saved up a lot of money, because you do need a down payment, some collateral for the SBA loan, because they want to see that you are putting in to the business just as well as they're putting into the business. And it can happen. Waitressing, 2 jobs, working 24/7, you can save money. Depends on how much money you want to borrow and what size business you want to do. But I did, I had let Eric know that I borrowed $64,000 for my business. And I didn't even use all of it. I started small, so depending on what you're doing, again, everything is different. I was a small business. And I did start small in about a 500 square foot space. So I needed the money for inventory, to take care of rent in case, the first few months in case I wasn't making money. Also, advertising was really important. If you can get free publicity, I'd say go for that first. But I did billboards, so I was like, I'm going in. You got to have a website, so you really have to figure out everything that you need, plus about 10% extra, more if you can, padding on how much money you need to borrow when you do everything. But after planning all that, I went to the bank. I got my loan with Rhinebeck Savings. I did actually, like I said, someone's always done it before. There was a store that had already used Rhinebeck Savings for a small business loan. And you can even find that information online, because I remember I found out a lot of information about that store, how much money they borrowed. I knew a lot. The internet is amazing. And they had already gone to Rhinebeck Savings for their loan, so I just was like, I'm going to do the same thing. So I just went to the same bank. I actually talked to Key Bank, I talked to Ulster Savings, Rhinebeck, and I just went with Rhinebeck because I knew, they'd already done it with another store, and I figured, why not me? So, but like I said, I had a co-signer and all that, so I got that. I also got a working line of credit, and again, this was all secured with the SBA loan too, so you're paying a little bit higher interest rates, but they give it to you for a little bit longer terms. My term was 7 years, so I paid off next April. So that's awesome as well. I have to save some money, and so I did all that, and I got the loan, and then I just opened up my store in August 2008 on a little side street in the Arlington area. And that's kind of how I got started.
So we always hear passion, and people like, you go in the bookstore and it's all about passion and gut and instinct, and everybody's like, as long as you have passion, you'll be fine. And I feel like I'm repeating myself because I had this discussion last night with an entrepreneurial class. But passion, think of passion as like the energy, because that's really what it is. The passion is the energy, and you get energy from carbs, right? So you have a plate full of carbs, that's passion. But you need some protein to go with those carbohydrates, right? And that protein is the research. So the passion, and I'm going to get to a point with Beth. I almost called you Elizabeth again.
It's okay.
Where the passion is what gets you through the tough times. The passion is what makes you get up every single morning and keep pushing. The passion is what makes you keep going when you're not making the amount of money that you wanted to make. All those times when you're like, this is really hard, it's the passion that keeps you going.
Or you're working 70-hour work weeks.
No doubt. So how much passion was involved in you getting the loan? You had all these people that kind of helped you and put you in the right direction, but how much did you have to drive the train?
You are the driver of the train, ultimately. I mean, like I said, I made so many sacrifices. I was not doing what my friends were doing. I was home all night. You know, I was up early in the morning. I was at the gym. I'm at the gym early in the morning every day. And because you have to get yourself out of bed. There's no one else motivating you besides yourself, ultimately. You are your own motivator. And even when, like, for example, this year, weather was definitely a factor in sales at my store. I mean, I killed a lot of businesses. Mine probably the worst since I opened. And when I don't see my customers, it makes it hard to do what I do, because like it's when my customers come in and love what they see and buy things, that's what makes me like this is why I do what I do. And when I don't see them, I'm like, I get down. I'm kind of like, man, you know, but then they come in and they like feed it back to me, and I'm like, this is why I do what I do. So in between those periods, especially if, you know, things aren't going as great, or the weather, or things that you can't really, you know, prevent happen, you have to be the person that, you know, gets yourself going every day. And you gotta love what you do.
I mention that because if you're here to really truly like talk about funding or growing your business or what have you, everybody's looking for help. And I try to say, take help and replace it with knowledge, because you're not going to get any help. Nobody's going to do it for you. They're going to give you paperwork, and they're going to tell you what you should do, and they're going to give you suggestions and direction. But if you aren't hungry and you don't go out and make it happen, like we prepare people to go out and get funding from angel investors all the time. And I have prospective clients come to me and say, are you going to get us money? And I'm like, I'm not getting you money. You got to get you the money. I'm going to prepare you. You know, and I use a dating scenario all the time. It's like, I'm going to put you in the best suit. I'm going to make you look really good. I'm going to make sure you don't have any eyebrows sticking out. I'm going to fix your hair. You're going to be perfect. And I'm going to put you in front of all these beautiful women. It's up to you at that point, brother. Like, if you fold or you don't say anything or you don't work the room, then nothing's going to happen. You have to go make it happen. Would you mind sharing a little bit of your woes in expansion? Because I think everybody has that fantasy. You know, you in particular, I'm thinking of, like, that scares me because we see it all the time. We see a business that's kind of successful at home, because some people get caught up in the fantasy of a storefront. Like, you fantasize about the business, and you fantasize how cool it's going to be to sit behind the counter and have people come in and go, hi. And that's the fantasy, right?
Mine was walking down the street and like waving to other like store owners.
Yeah.
That was mine. I never have time to walk down the street, guys.
Yeah. So,
I'm not walking down the street ever.
but you don't fantasize about the long winter where she was in there missing her customers because the store was empty. So it's like you have to be really careful before you, because your business, that's a really expensive advertisement. So you may be better off online, you know what I mean, than opening up a storefront. That may sink you. So you have to, and I'm not saying it will, but I'm just saying you got to be careful with the fantasies of what the business looks like, and you got to try to force yourself to fantasize what it's like really, not what it's like in your dreams and wishes. So.
And sometimes you can rent space that's not a storefront, that's less money, so you can maybe have, you know, larger output of chocolate and build your online business as well, if that's another opportunity.
Right.
Because the storefront, it is a lot of hours. I work 6 days a week in my store, but I'm open every day, so I'm always working, and it's long hours. So that's another thing that you have to, if you have a family and things like that, that take time. And that's another thing about having your own business. You are ultimately working 24/7, like, so you have to really love what you do. And that's important as well.
So let's dive into alternative financing, because that's really, you know, growing the business. So let's talk about, there's a million reasons that you could need money. You might not need money to start the business. You might not need money to expand the business or change the business. There may be different reasons that you need capital. I use this scenario all the time. So there's the wall that some small businesses hit, where, you know, they're working 80 hours a week, but they can't afford to hire somebody else to grow the business. You know, I use the lawn scenario. So, you know, I own a lawn mowing business, and I have 15 lawns, and I'm tapped, right? I'm working 70 hours a week, and I get a 16th lawn, but I can't afford to hire a guy with just one extra lawn, right? I need 15 more lawns to show up all at once in order for me to afford that second guy. So what do? I end up working 80 hours a week so that I can do the 16th, 17th, and 18th lawn. And then when I get to the 19th lawn, then I hire the guy. But I don't break even on that guy until he's got 10 lawns, right? I make money on the 5 after that. So so it's like a real dilemma that you end up in. So that's like a growth reason that you would need funding versus the startup reason. But so let's talk about, this is all the funky stuff that Capacity really gets involved in. We don't get involved in helping people get bank financing too often. I mean, our clients, we might help them do the business plan and the feasibility study, and then they go to the bank and the bank goes, nice business plan. You have a house? $100,000 equity in it? Awesome. What's your credit like? It's awesome. Beautiful. Here's $100,000. So I'm being a smart aleck, sorry. Got to remember there's a bank guy in the room. So we get into all the different kinds of alternatives. So the first alternative I want to talk about is credit cards. Credit cards are awesome. And I usually get at least one gasp. Like,
I'm shaking my head over here. I'm like, yeah, they are.
yeah, so she knows.
Especially when you need inventory.
She's lived
You're
it.
not
Yeah.
selling it for months later.
So, your conservative mom who's like, don't use the credit cards. Credit cards are a fantastic way to fund a startup business or growth or inventory or whatever you need. Credit cards it's free money that's like right there for you. And if you can get it at, you can have normal cards now that are 6%, 7%. And if you have decent credit, you get zeros all the time. I've lived pretty much my entire adult life with anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 worth of credit card debt on zero cards. When the market crashed in 05, 06, I day traded with credit card money at 0% interest. I took $20,000 out of my credit cards and I day traded with it. I'm a horrible day trader when the market goes like this. But when the market goes like this in one day, I would put in a buy and a sell and walk away and make 50 cents a day on every single buy. And you do that with 20 grand. I made 20 grand in 3 months. So nothing wrong with it. You have to keep track of the card and the payments though. That's the trick with credit cards. With credit cards, you don't get a payment book. You don't get somebody that calls you and says you're late. You know what I mean? You've got to make sure that you keep up on it. You don't let it get away from you. That's the trick with the credit cards. So you can use them, but plan and use them wisely.
And if anyone does have inventory, American Express Plum has a card for kind of for retailers that when you do have to pay for stuff up front, they give you an extra 30 days to pay with no fee. So that's kind of a good card to look into.
So hard money. Hard money is the legal loan shark, right? So we all know what loan sharks are. We've all seen them loan money to people and break their knees on the movies. And hard money is really the kind of the legal version of that. So it comes in a couple different forms. I'll give you some examples of it. Like real estate is a beautiful one. So you don't really have any money to put down and you don't have good credit, you don't have any collateral, and you want to buy a piece of land to put up a business, a small hotel or something. There are hard money lenders out there that will lend you that money. It's really high interest rates, typically, very high. And let's say you want to buy, everybody watch like rehab on TV where they flip houses and rehab houses. There's people that'll lend you that money left and right. You could go find dilapidated houses and call these guys up and they'll ask you for some information on the house. No credit, no nothing. Check shows up in your mailbox. And you send them like a report when you've gotten a third of the way through and they send you another check. 2/3 of the way through, they send you another check. Third of the way through, they send you another check. It's a beautiful thing, but it's like 5% interest a day. So they expect you to flip that house in a week or two, not 6 months. So hard money's great as long as you know what you're going to use it for. Restaurants will often do a lot of that. So you've heard of factoring, maybe. Credit card receipts. So if you have a business that's really seasonal, If you make a lot of money in the summer, but you don't make any money in the winter, ideally, you want to get a line of credit from a bank. You know, I mean, that's the way to go because it's a lot safer and it's a low interest rate and it's there for you and everything. So you would use that to fund the lean months when you're not making any money and you have to pay the rent. And then you put the money back when you're making money in the summer. But for some, like restaurants that are renting a restaurant, they have no collateral, they have nothing, they kind of live by the skin of their teeth, they can do like credit card factoring. So you give the hard money lender a statement that shows that you make that much money each winter, every year for the last couple of years so that they're comfortable with it. And then they will give you, pre-lend you what you're going to make in your credit cards in the future. And then when you make it, they actually will, like, you typically attach your merchant services account so that when your customers come in and swipe their credit card, bam, a piece of it automatically goes to the hard money lender so they don't have to chase you. But again, it's a lot of money, the interest rate's really high, it's not ideal, line of credit at the bank is better, but if you can't get it, it works. We've had lots of people do it. Here's a real interesting one, equipment lease buybacks. So there's all kinds of funky ways to get money. So let's use I'll use a client I had. They had a Dave & Buster's kind of thing. If you remember Dave & Buster's, they're like a big, huge indoor restaurant place with video games and pool tables and stuff. This place happened to have like an amusement park in it. So it literally had a roller coaster inside. So they needed money. So one of the things that they did was an equipment lease buyback where they essentially sold the equipment. And when I say equipment, it's not equipment that can walk away. So it's not cash registers and chairs. It's things that are attached or big things. So like the roller coaster. The roller coaster is not going to disappear in the middle of the night in a box truck. It's kind of hard. So they would sell the roller coaster to this company, and then the company would give them the money for the purchase, and then they would just kind of like lease it back to them. So if they wanted to get it back, they would just buy it back from them. And the reason for that is that the lender owns the equipment. They don't have to go through the hassle of repossessing it. They already own it. So let's talk about investors, all different kinds of investors. So this is all sort of equity stuff. If you're looking for equity financing instead of debt financing, and you can kind of combine them in certain scenarios, the very first place that you should look is friends and family. And I'm going to tell you there's two reasons for that. A, if you're prepared enough, and I'm sure that you can attest to this, if you are prepared enough to get your dad to give you money or your mom to co-sign, like who's your biggest critic? Anyway, your parents are typically your worst critic. You know what I mean? They're the ones that you're like, oh, mom, give me 50 grand, I'm going to start a business. Yeah, right. Because they've seen you do every stupid thing you've ever done in your life. That's the point I was trying to make. So if you prepare yourself and do your business planning and feasibility study and your financials and what have you, and give it to your mom and your dad to the point where they're willing to support you, that's a great litmus test that you've done the kind of preparation and planning that you should have done. And did that help you, or would they have given you the money anyway?
I worked for my father. My parents are divorced, so you have to understand. My mom was like, "Of course, I'll co-sign that loan. You can leave working for your dad, you know."
Ah, all right. So that's cool. You had leverage.
Well, you know, my dad owned his own business. I did work for him. He did not really get on board with what I was doing for years afterwards until he realized I did it on my own, and you know, he was definitely impressed. Not that he'd admit that to me, but he helped me with my next building of my business. But he was not at all on board, and he was the business owner. He was actually very kind of like, don't do it. It was a bad idea, because I actually got my loan right before the economy and the recession started in 2008. Like, I got lucky, tail end, and I opened, you know, in August of 2008, and by that September, October, it was pretty rough. But my mom, you know, she knew I would do it, so she co-signed, and it was just like, why not? Hey, you only live once.
Friends and family is a great litmus test, number one. Number two, if you get money from friends and family, it says a lot to the next guy in line. I use guy for girls and guys, so don't take it that way. The next investor in line. If they see that your friends and family invested money in you, they feel a lot more comfortable, just like the bank feels more comfortable if the entrepreneur puts in their own money. So that works in a couple different ways. The next area is, so that's usually good for small amounts of money, depending on how rich your parents and your friends and family are. The next is angels, and we deal with angels pretty much exclusively. So angels are, a lot of people are like, okay, what's an angel investor? An angel investor, I'm going to take all the mysticism out of it for you. An angel investor is a person, just like you and me. They are no different. They just have a boatload of money. And they either won it or earned it or got lucky or inherited it, right? But they're just people. They're not necessarily any more educated. They're not necessarily any more, I can't think of the word I want, so I'll use regimented. They're just people. And I say that because they have just as many flaws as anybody else when you approach them. It's not like approaching a bank. A bank has underwriting standards and underwriters, and when you approach them, it's all kind of the same, and they know what they're doing. When you approach an investor, you could approach an investor with a plan that's half-baked and get lucky because they like your eyes. It happens. So, but angel investors are really, well, I'll stop because we can get into that later. I'll talk about all the ways to kind of get to the investors. Venture capital is, you've heard of VCs, and venture capital is usually what people hear. Venture capital is like a mutual fund. So, and I'll explain. Venture capital essentially has two pieces. It has the entrepreneurs and it has the investors. So I'm the venture capital fund, you're the entrepreneur, and you guys are the investors. So I say to you guys, give me a whole bunch of money, and I am going to go find some really awesome businesses to invest in, and then you guys are going to make money. But unlike a mutual fund, you would buy into the mutual fund, and the mutual fund manager would go invest in blue chip stocks or whatever that would make lots of money and spread the risk. You guys are going to invest in this venture capital fund. I'm going to go try to find people that I'm going to put $1 million into or $10 million into that in 3, 5, 6 years we're going to sell for $100 million. We know that 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 are going to fail. We know that going in. So that's the venture capital model. They're going to pick 10 that they're going to invest $1 million or $5 million in, and they're going to just fail. And that money is like throwing it in the fireplace. But one is going to hit, and it's going to make $100 million or $200 million or $500 million. And everybody's going to be like, whoo, we were worried there for a little while, but nice.
And I feel like that's common, right? I mean, I feel like that's more common that people don't know that, right? That a lot of people do use this way.
Yeah, well, venture cap. So here's the difference. Angel and venture capital, the big difference is the amount. So the amount and the payback. Mm-hmm. So typically angels will do anything from, $1 to 5 million. But once you get like above 5 million, you start to get into these venture capital groups. When a venture capital firm invests in you, there's 3 things that happen. A, I'll go through the yes, no, and yes. It's actually no, yes, no. They don't want to run your company, okay? They don't. They're not in the business of wanting to take over the job of CEO. Like they don't want to invest in her company and then not have her work. They want her working 80 hours a week to make the company work. And if they don't think that she's going to, they're not going to invest in a good idea with a hack. They'd bring in an interim CEO to run the company. They don't want to run it. The yes is that they want control. And the no is, but they don't have share control. So I'll explain that too. So typically, they won't take, they typically won't take like more than 50% of the company. However, in the contract between you and the venture capital firm, they will make sure that they have voting rights over certain important decisions. Does that make sense? So while you control the company, if it comes to selling the company, or borrowing more than X amount of money or firing the CFO, you have to get their permission first, regardless of the fact that you have more shares than they do. So now I'm a venture capital firm, but instead of focusing on startups, I focus on turnarounds. So now I take all my investors' money and I put it in my pocket and I go look for companies that are in trouble because their management sucks. And I come in and I take over the company and I kick everybody out and I fix it. So those are turnaround companies. And the only reason that I wanted to be real specific about that is that I don't want people to get the wrong idea about venture capital. A lot of people think, venture capital comes, they're going to take my company or they're going to take over my company. And that's not necessarily the case. And not for nothing, if somebody was going to take over your company, you'd want them to take over your company. They're going to be there watching you and helping you. That's not such a bad thing. Somebody invests $10 million or $100 million in your company and they're going to be sitting at the boardroom with you helping you make decisions. Those are the guys that you want at the table. So everybody kind of clear? Friends and family, angels, venture capital. Any questions or comments? And I'll move on. Okay, so types of investments. There's really two very popular types of investments. So equity investments are what you see on Shark Tank, what angels and venture capital will mostly do. And it's really simple. The simple part, and I'll get into the complicated part. The simple part is you come up with a valuation, right? So Beth's company is worth $100 million, and she needs $10 million, so she's going to give 10% of her company up in exchange for $10 million. Real simple. How she evaluated that, how she came up with that $100 million is quite important, obviously. You'd have to make sure that it was there. But that's really simple equity deal. It's pretty simple. Money in exchange for the 10% equity. And you can do that with friends and family too. But here's a really cool way to do friends and family. It's called convertible debt. So a convertible debt, I did this with my dad once upon a time for a deal that I wanted to do. So I said to my dad, "Dad, I need you to invest $10,000 in this idea." And my dad was like, "I don't invest. I'm conservative. I keep the money under the mattress. I'm not going to invest. Nothing against you. I'm just, I don't invest in stocks, let alone your idea." So I did some research, and this is when we discovered this whole convertible debt thing. And I said, well, okay, check this out, convertible debt. So I will take the $10,000 from you, and if I get the rest of the money that I need, the rest of, let's say, the $100,000 I'm trying to raise, and get to this, stone? Thank you. Milestones.
Milestone.
There are certain words that I just can never remember. I literally have a sticky on my computer of certain words that I just never can remember. Traditional is one of them. It's written on my sticky. Anyway, so you reach a certain milestone, and that $10,000 does in fact remain an investment at a predetermined amount. So I give them 5%, let's say, for the $10,000. If I don't reach that milestone, then that note turns into debt, and I owe him the $10,000 back with a predetermined amount of interest. So if it works, he gets his equity. If it doesn't work, he gets his money back with interest. And you pick an interest rate that you can convince him is fair. If you are prepared enough and planned enough, and you have the right paperwork and the business plans and the financial projections, and you convince those people to give you money, that's a great litmus test to know that you're on the right track and you've done a good job. Because those are hard people.
What is it called again?
I'm just saying a litmus test, just a test.
No,
Oh,
Convertible
sorry.
debt.
Like friends and family.
Convertible
I
debt.
can't even imagine
Convertible
convertible
debt.
debt just throwing you money.
No, they wouldn't. I'm actually saying they'd be the least likely to throw you money because they know. They watched you do all the stupid things you've done all your life. So they'd be the least likely to throw you money sometimes. So you're an entrepreneur, and I'm your relative, or I'm the investor. So I'm going to give you 10 grand, and you promise me, you say, listen, if I get the rest of the money that I need and open the business in 12 months, then that $10,000 turns into an investment. And I have 5% in the company. If you don't do that, like the 13th month comes and you failed, you didn't get the rest of the money you need and you didn't open the business, I get my 10 grand back with 6% interest. That's all.
So it's actually a conversion. It's converting to
It's called convertible debt. That's exactly what it is.
equity in the business.
Yep. So it starts out with equity and converts to debt if you don't hit the milestone.
Who sets that up?
You do.
I mean, do you go to a lawyer if you want to set that up with your company, or you,
Uh,
how does that?
This is,
legal?
we'll do
If
it.
you're my dad, you do.
Yeah. Kenny?
I mean, he did, I mean, I had a lawyer with him, so, you know, we made sure we had.
Yeah. A quick note about attorneys. Usually, I have a really hard time in the tri-state area finding attorneys that know how to do these kinds of things because they're abnormal, right? So you have business attorneys that will go, oh yeah, oh, can you do a deal with an investor? So even if somebody gave you $10,000 in exchange for 5% equity in the company, that's not something you want just a run-of-the-mill business attorney handling. Like, they need SEC experience. And it's not because you're a Securities and Exchange Commission. That's not because it's a stock, right? It's going to be on NASDAQ. It's because it's the same, legally, it's the same thing. So if that person doesn't understand, and I'll give you a really good example of an SEC requirement that happens when you do like a public offering. And those laws are, well, they're loosening up quite a bit recently. But when you make a public offering to somebody and I get into a contract with you in my company and you invest in me, if an SEC attorney who knows what he's doing, there'll be 10 pages of it could blow up, I could be wrong, I could die, it could be the wrong color. There'll be 10 pages of excuses as to why it might not work. If a business attorney does it, he's not going to have those 10 pages of excuses as to why it's going to blow up. And when the investor comes back and sues me because he's saying I lied to him or misrepresented what he was investing in, if I have those 10 pages, I can go, dude, read those 10 pages, I'm off no matter what. If I don't have those 10 pages, he could win a suit against me. So it's very important that you pick an attorney. And my litmus test for that is just to ask them if they have SEC experience or know the law at least. Let's talk about, all right, so finding investors, just really quick, very, very difficult, but the easiest way to find them, and like we've had clients that have been very successful in finding investors, and this is why I asked Beth if she like drove the train. The investors that we have that are successful in getting funded are the ones that just go hammer. They tell everybody. We have a client that got her first investment in a bank parking lot for $100,000 because she was telling everybody about her company and telling everybody that she was raising capital and telling everybody that she was ready and going forward no matter what. And she just kept bumping into people. And she's in the city right now with a couple $1 million worth of investors, and they're paying her a salary to actually finish putting the company together because she pushed. I'm speeding up because we're running out of time.
There's also have you heard of Kickstarter or some Kickstarter online? Like, that's another great way if you have products and stuff to like get started so you have some
Absolutely.
sales and things like that to show that there's interest in your product.
Yeah, crowdfunding.
Yeah.
So crowdfunding, there's websites where if you have a really cool product, you can put it on there and kind of pre-sell it or pre-sell t-shirts or a signed version of it or to come up with all kinds of creative stuff to pre-sell the item and get the funding.
And I feel like there's a lot of people that even reach out just to the products that are on there if they're interested in something. Like, there's a lot more people out there willing to invest in businesses than that just have interest in like people, starting businesses and products. They think it's cool. They want to help out. They have money. Kickstarter is just a way to like promote a product.
It's a product, not
It's more of a
necessarily
product.
service.
Yeah.
A Kickstarter is a website that you could put your product or service on and get funding for it.
But they services as well.
It depends.
It's-
Yeah, it depends. Well, different sites do different things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kickstarter might be,
30,000 just Kickstarter for our family's farm. And most of it came through friends and family who saw the Kickstarter and just,
for a farm.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you can have people who like say they have a product and they can go on and sell like 1,000 of them. So it looks like they have an order. It was my friend's brother who had this product. And he went on Kickstarter, he sold this many, and he actually went and interviewed for Shark Tank. He didn't get on ultimately, but people do start there just to get, if there's interest in their product. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we've had some people try to get on Shark Tank. The interesting thing about Shark Tank is Shark Tank, the producers for the show get a percentage or have a right to a percentage of your sales if they put you on the show, whether you get a deal or not.
Oh, boy. Wow.
And it makes sense, if you think about it, because of all the PR that you get from being on the show. So, I'm not going to get to the umpteen things that I could have talked about, but I'll leave you the package. But I am going to talk about, there's 10 areas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just want to make sure. 10 areas that need to be in your business plan or in your proposal or whatever, and this is really good coverall because this is the whole purpose of a feasibility study, of a business plan, and it's what the investors want to see as well. So first and typically there's a saying in the angel investment world, there's the horse and the jockey. So oftentimes they're looking kind of 50% at the horse and 50% at the jockey. The horse is the business and the jockey is the entrepreneur, obviously. So somebody that's a new jockey, the business has to kind of stand on its own a little bit more. Somebody like Beth, who's got a story and has success and is paying her loans back and does all that kind of stuff and has, obviously comes across like she knows what she's doing and she's been there and she's had those experiences, her jockey value would go way higher. And the investor would care less about what she's going to do. You get somebody like, Elon Musk, who's a famous entrepreneur startup guy, comes to you and says, I want $10 million, I'm going to start a company. You just cut him a check for the $10 million because he's got a track record of producing these crazy, huge companies. So Tesla, right? Anyway. So here's what should be in the business plan. And any business plan that you put together, I don't care who puts it together, I don't care if it's a WEDC curriculum or a template or it's my template or it's a score template or any of these things. Just giving me signs, I don't know why. So the first thing that should be there is a business summary. And the summary is, I'm going to tell you, it seems obvious, right? But let me tell you what's so important about the business summary, what not to do. The business summary is not for you to tell the whole story. When you read a John Grisham novel, you don't really know the whole story until you're done reading the book. Correct? You don't understand the whole story in the first chapter. You understand it after you read the whole book. A business plan should read the same way. Don't attempt to explain the whole entire thing in the summary. The summary is designed to draw a picture of what we're about to get into and talk about. So the example that I use is, if I said to everybody, it has spots and it's really fast. What does everybody think I'm talking about? A cheetah, right? And then I say, it has spots and it's really fast and it's red. Everybody's brain probably just went, right? If I said, I'm talking about cars, people. It's cars, they're fast, they're red, and they have spots. You go, that's in poor taste, but okay, keep going. You see the difference? So that's the concept of a well-written summary, is just to let everybody know what you're talking about. For Madeline's very important for you and your business. We've had this discussion. Very important for you to have a summary that lets people get kind of a vision of what we're talking about, and then you can kind of get into why it's different and special and weird and all that other kind of stuff. But if your startup thing said it's a CRM, it's a customer relations management system. Okay, now I at least know what state I'm in And then you could get into all the details. You know, you're easy. You're somewhat easy. You know what I mean? It would depend on what the business is, but very important, and that's the purpose of it. Management, the management team bios, that's all about the jockey, right? We want to make sure that your bio is there. We don't necessarily want a resume. We don't want why you think the business is so awesome and why you've always wanted to do this and why this is your dream. We don't want that. We want to know what makes you qualified. And if you're not qualified, you better think about bringing somebody else in that is qualified and putting their bio in there as well. Okay? Customer problem. This is something that people blow off all the time. There needs to be a customer problem. You can't just, I'm going to invent something that's going to cover the holes in these chairs. And it's going to be great. People are going to love it. You're going to buy them, right? Everybody's going to buy them. You're going to sell
I
them in
don't
your
have holes in
store.
my chairs.
Because you don't like holes in your chairs. Me neither. That's why I'm creating it. We're going to make millions. But is there really a problem here, people? Does anybody have a problem with the holes in the chairs other than maybe a couple people that don't like it? So now you took away this customer problem, and now you're getting into this very thin area of maybe people who don't like holes in their chairs and might buy something to cover the holes. Pretty unlikely. Could sell them, but it's tough to convince an investor to put a lot of money into it or that it's going to be a real business, right? Some businesses don't really have that problem. Chocolate, we all know everybody's got that problem, right? You don't really need to say that I have this thing. People have this problem. They need this thing. It's called chocolate. And I invented it. You know, it's kind of easier for you. But you can't just blow that off and go, I invented this thing. It's awesome. The product or service, you have to explain the product or service. It's nice to compare the actual product to other products or service to other service before you get into competitors. That's a really great exercise that shows that you actually vetted the product. So like we have a client that has a bottle, a water bottle. It's made out of glass that you would put the water in instead of plastic or metal. And in their product section, they have their bottle versus the plastic bottle, their bottle versus a metal bottle, their bottle versus a plastic bottle that doesn't have BPA's in it. And really just that kind of shows the validity of the product or service. Target market, you have to identify who's actually going to buy this. And target market's kind of the middle piece. So you really want your market, which is, let's say, like your demographics. Okay, going after women 25 to 35 in Dutchess County. That's your market. Your target market shrinks that down to that drink water out of bottles. Okay? And then if you can get, I don't want to go way long on this because it will get long, but then you can get into like psychographics and actually defining the person that's really going to buy your product, like who's your perfect customer and why. So it would be, you know, green moms that don't want BPA's in their water. Now you know who you're marketing to. You're not just marketing. So now, would you take out a billboard? Would you spend your limited marketing budget on a billboard? Hell no, because that would be marketing to Dutchess County. Everybody drives by it. Would you put your money in, what was my next one? Sorry, I forgot it. People that drink water out of bottles? I wouldn't. I might if I had a lot of money. But would you go after the green moms that don't want BPA's if you had a glass water bottle? That would be a great place to spend your marketing budget. So anybody who's going to invest in you wants to make sure that you're not going to be like, I need $1 million so I can brand. I'm going to buy billboards and airplanes and TV ads. I'm just going to brand myself and people are going to think it's awesome. Come get me. Your sales and marketing strategy is exactly, I kind of just covered that, right? That target market and going through that exercise is going to have you refine what you're going to do and why. It needs to make sense. You can't just say, we're going to do, you know, marketing. For you as like a marketing person that's local, it works. Depending on what your level customer is. If you're going after $100,000 budget accounts, then it may not work so well.
No, but it would work for the green mom who doesn't want the PDAs and the water.
Right, but I want to, before we get off Facebook, I want to make sure that everybody in here doesn't like, that they understand that Facebook isn't the panacea of marketing. That's all I'm trying to get at. So for Beth, showing pictures of clothes and stuff at a local shop, perfect. Chocolate, local, perfect. Me, a complete bomb, utter waste of time. What do I get on Facebook? Wackadoodles. No joke. I get a guy from Kentucky who invented an engine that runs on bird poop. And it's called, this is real by the way, it's called God.
Well, he might have an idea if it was goose poop that he's.
No, God stands for God. No joke. Like it all comes together. So, and that is a really perfect indication of who I get on my Facebook page. Those are the prospects that my Facebook page brings in, those kind of people. But Leah, my point that is really important for people to be successful is that you should not be doing everything. You should figure out what works for you. And if that's one piece of social, that's great. If it's no social, that's okay. Do what makes your business work. But my point is figure it out. The other thing that Leah said that's really, really important is I think that gets in the way of a lot of entrepreneurs, and you made me think about this when I asked what your idea was, is paranoia and protection. Well, we tell people all the time that, like, I didn't want to pick on you, but if you don't mind. When people come to us with an idea and they're like, we didn't get it patented yet, and can we, should we have everybody sign an NDA? And I always say, you know how hard it is to make it happen. So if you told everybody, and I'm not trying to get you to do it, but the point is don't be held back by the paranoia. If you told everybody your most brilliant idea, nobody in this room is going to go out and do it. The idea is 1% of it. I mean, you can't start without that idea, but it's execution that's difficult. You know what I mean? So it's not, you shouldn't worry so much about that. Okay, I'm going to skip one because it's kind of easy. Competitors, you always have competitors. Think about competitors very broadly when you talk about your competitors. If you're opening up a chocolate store, don't just talk about the chocolate store that's down the other end of town. You want to talk about every chocolate store that's online. You want to look at anybody that could divert your money. So if I'm on my way to the chocolate store, I could literally go past an Exxon and go, you know what, I want a Snickers instead, and pull into the gas station. So a gas station could be your competition, no joke. And then also look at competition as not just the people that are going to get in the ring with you in your backyard, that are going to box with you, but look at them as people that you can learn from or businesses you can learn from. So look for, what is your idea?
Handcrafted Unique Boutique is the name of the company.
Okay, so look for a handcrafted unique boutique that's like you. Go online and find one that's in California or in Texas that's really successful, and find a dozen of them and research them and put them in your business plan and figure out, when you get done looking at a dozen of them, you'll have a really good idea what the successful ones are doing right, so you can steal it, and what the unsuccessful ones are doing wrong, and you make sure you don't do it. It's none of this is rocket science. It's all been done before.
And if they're not online, they're definitely on Facebook. Sorry. I mean, Facebook business wasn't even really there when I opened my business, so I didn't even really stalk people that way. I'm a really good detective. But now you can find so many. I follow stores across. It's the best part is following other stores all over the U.S. to see what they're doing.
There you go.
And their marketing ideas, how they're bringing in customers, all of those types of things. So that's a really great way to get your research, is pop them in on Facebook. Yep.
Competitive advantage is the other main piece that you kind of want to talk about. And competitive advantage isn't necessarily that you're going to beat your competitor. It's just, why is your place gonna work? That's all. So sometimes you can actually come out and say, I don't have a competitive advantage at all, but I'm in a location where there aren't any direct competitors. So I don't necessarily have an advantage. And if somebody moved in next door, I might get crushed, right? Because I'm not doing anything differently. It's just there's nobody there. So that's okay. But try to identify what makes you unique or better or but again, you don't have to have one. And if you don't have one, don't make one up. Just say, I don't have one, but here's why it still makes sense. And the last is just the request. So make sure you put what you want and why and what you're willing to give up for it in the plan. And I'll stop there and tell us your story.
So I was at One Davis Avenue in Poughkeepsie, and then we had 2 dressing rooms. It was only 500 square feet. My office was at my house, so that I was running into problems with that. But I basically built my business in the 4 years that I was open, and found that I needed more dressing rooms. I just didn't have the space for the customers that I did, that I had coming in. So I wanted to move, find a larger space. I wanted to stay in the same area. Originally, I did plan to open in Beacon, so I did do 2 business plans. But I was more comfortable in my own backyard. I think that was more like where I knew the most people, and that was important to me. So I looked for available spaces. I was willing to rent. I didn't want to buy something, and that's kind of where my dad, came in and kind of helped me secure the loan. Ultimately, for me to get it, but I paid the bills though. Unfortunately, he wasn't willing to go all the way. But if I ever do get married, it'll probably be in my parking lot of my building. I can tell you that right now. There's no, I'm all dried up. So, but I moved right down the street. I found this great building. I bought it directly from the doctor that owned it. It just happened to be one of those things that just kind of like landed in my lap. We didn't use any real estate agents. I had a customer who adored me and spent a lot of time in my store just talking to me, and she actually lived there, and she said he was looking to sell his building, and I went and took a look at it. I actually got a great deal on it right on the corner, right by Vassar College, on the corner of College U and Fairmont. If anyone never knows where the Dutch Cabin is, it's right across the street. It had a parking lot. It's 3 floors. I have 2 rental spaces on the 2nd floor. I have an esthetician and beauty bar and a massage therapist that rent from me. I have an office on the 3rd floor, which is awesome.
Does she have an opening this afternoon?
She probably does.
Seriously.
She's looking to build her business, so And then the 1st floor, I have about 1,100 square feet, plus a basement for storage, because I'm big into, another thing about making my store really unique was I use, antique and flea market finds to kind of decorate, so I make it different than going to the mall and shopping in a store. And people really love that because they say there's always something to look at. It's always different. And that's another attraction. I also have a garage, so that's cool too.
So what were the struggles? Give us the struggles.
The struggle is cash flow. I never had a problem in my other store with cash flow, ever. Not once.
I've seen your store.
So,
I've been to the Dutch last week, and I've been by your store, and yeah, you were right. Yeah.
it's
The
completely,
antique stuff you had, and
Yeah.
and all that caught my attention. I'm not in the women's
Yeah.
clothing, but it definitely you did very well.
I mean,
Very
we took
catchy.
trees down. It was different. We definitely redid the entire thing. But cash flow, I never really had an issue. I also had to put a handicap ramp in at this store too, so that came out of, again, my 401k, which I started in my other store. I was really able to build my business there, save money, put money away, and I take, New York State has a lot of rules, so like $20,000, $25,000 for a handicap ramp. Again, I have good taste, but I'm not going to ever do it again. So, but there was a lot of costs that went into it, and cash flow definitely affected, my business now. So I've definitely learned to control my inventory more, buy things that I know can sell quick enough. So I definitely look at my business financially. I talk to my accountant a lot more. I use a really good accountant, so someone I talk to all the time. So you definitely spend money in areas that you originally didn't spend money in, but spending the money in those areas are important to me because I like to have good financial advice.